Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Everquest Old School. And as you can see, I am playing my Dwarf Paladin. He is level 7. In fact, I'll show you real quick just how far into level 7 I am. And we are over in Greater Faydark at the Orc Camp. Or Kill, I should say. I don't know why I'm not getting this guy. And it's a pretty good spot. I mean, you're going to make pretty good experience here because there's a constant stream of things to pull. You got several different tents over here where each... not really getting experience off of this. Let's see if I get experience off of this one. Okay, so there's just a few over here that are green that I'm not really getting that much off of. But for the most part, there's quite a bit to pull. Obviously, for those of you who watched on my videos before, you know this area quite well. There's 3 creatures who spawn over here in front of this camp. There's another 2 that spawn over here, I believe. Maybe it might just be 1. But there is definitely 2 that spawn over here in front of this tent. You come down here, I believe there's another 2 who spawn over here. You come around the corner, and yeah, there's another 2 that we just pulled over here. There's also a fair bit of roamers, not too heavily, not like it is in Eastern Commons, where it's just roamers all over the place. Hopefully this guy will not blind me, because that's going to suck trying to get back to my group if I can't see anything. There's nobody who spawns in front of this tent, unfortunately, but as you can see, that's quite a few creatures, and I haven't even gotten to the tent that's further away, or at the entrance to Crushbone, which has 3 on the left-hand side, 3 in the middle, and I believe 2 on the right when you're staring at the entrance. So a lot of mobs at your fingertips if your group is capable of doing it. Now, granted, the mobs in front of Crushbone are going to be higher level. They're going to be a little bit more difficult, or a lot more difficult, I should say, than the creatures over here if you don't have a good enough group. But if you're wiping the floor with these mobs and you're having a hard time finding something to pull because you guys are just killing so quickly, or well, let's see, let me see if I can grab this guy, Centurion. But if you guys are killing too quickly and you're just not finding enough to pull because you guys are just rocking it, you can go up there in front of Paladin and try to get some kills. Now, the one thing I want to warn you, if you're going to pull from that place, especially if you're going to be the puller themselves, is that they do hit pretty hard. And unless you have maybe a sew on, or you just run faster than the average mob, you're going to be getting hit the whole way back. And they do hit pretty hard, especially when they're hitting you from behind. Let me see. And so a lot of the time, especially earlier in my levels, I would pull from over there and I would get back over here with like 40 or 30% health. That's pretty low, and that cleric really doesn't have a choice. He has to heal you because you're going to die. But because he heals you, he's now going to get the aggro from those creatures, because all you did was pull him. You didn't really do any damage to him. You hit him with a bow, an arrow, or you hit him with your sword, or you cast a spell on him, whatever the case may be. And so only that one person, that one mob, really has any aggro to you. The other 2 were just following because you attacked their friend. So he's going to get hit right away, and things are probably going to go downhill from there because he's not going to be able to take the hits very well at all. So just be cautious. Be very aware of what you're doing and the situation you're going to put not just yourself but your group in. And if you're going to die, or if it looks like you're going to die, and you know that when you get back to the group probably everybody else is going to die as well, my suggestion would be just to take the hit. Just die yourself, away from your group before they have any chance of getting any aggro, and then run back. At least that way the downtime is not that bad, and you didn't really get any hard feelings from your group because you didn't kill them. Now, granted, at this level, nobody's really going to hold it that much against you, but there are people who will run from evil cities. Like I've seen some Dark Elves here. I've seen a lot of Iskars, ogres, and trolls over here. they have to run pretty far to get here. And sometimes they will make that trip and then not be able to find a bind anywhere nearby. And they'll just be like, well, it's a low-level zone, I'm not going to die. Which is never a good thing to say to yourself. Oh, I'm not going to die, you know. It's not going to happen, you know. It's so easy here. That's the last word you say before you do a facepalm. You know, why didn't I bind? Now, okay, now I have to spend an hour and a half to get back. I'm going to lose my place in the group because they're not going to wait an hour and a half for me to get there. And it's a nightmare, you know. So just be cautious. Make sure you're bound somewhere close by, and if you're gonna wipe the group, make sure you just take the hit yourself, because you're really gonna mess up a lot of people sometimes if you don't. As the puller or the tank, you need to get used to dying. You're gonna do it probably 10 times more than anybody else, for the pure fact that you're always taking the hit. Sometimes the healer can't get the heal off in time, and then you die, but their group is able to finish it off and kill it. And then you'll get a res at higher levels and get you back. But remember that, I think is it 29 or 39 for a cleric? I think it's 29 is the earliest he gets a res, and it does something pathetic like 15% or something of your experience back. So you're not getting all your experience back, but you are saving yourself the trip of running back, especially if you're in a dungeon or a room that's kind of difficult to get back into. Let me grab these guys real quick. So it does save you the trip, so you know you're not really going to miss a beat. You're going to have that res effect on you for, I think it's like a minute, while you wait for your power to get back up and everybody else to buff you up and things of that sort, before you head out and start killing again. Now, if you're in a decent group, the experience loss you made probably will get back about 5-6 kills, if that. Usually less than that most of the time, but you need to just be in the habit, or not in the habit because you don't want to make it a habit of dying, but it's going to happen so often. You need to throw away any stress or any anger you get from those deaths. Some people get so stressed out from dying and so angry that anybody let them die. And it's usually the people who are the ones who never get to die, like the casters, the wizards. I had one guy who was playing an enchanter in one of my groups way back when, and he was telling me, after a really, really bad pull, that he had only died 4 times his entire playthrough as an enchanter. And he was like level 50 at the time, and I thought that was just amazing. He had only died 4 times. How careful did he have to be? How unbelievably lucky did he have to be to only have died 4 times? And in that night, we just kept getting bad pull after bad pull. I was playing on my cleric, so it wasn't my fault, but you know, with an enchanter and a cleric, we still couldn't save the group. That's how bad the pulls were. And he had died so many times in that thing. I think it was like 8 or 9 times that night he had died. He was like, it's just crazy. He was getting upset. And I was like, well, I'm rezzing him, and I'm giving him, I think it was like a 96% res, or whatever my max res was. So he wasn't losing too much experience. But he was taking it so badly. He was so stressed out and so angry. And I basically was his ear to rant into, you know, and I didn't mind. You know, like I said, I love hearing from people and finding out what makes them tick and things of that sort. But it was, I could tell he was stressed out, and it's just not good for you to do that because it's a part of the game. Okay, grab these 2 guys. Oh, stun. That's another thing you have to worry about when you come over here is they do stun quite a bit more than the other guys, probably because they're a bit higher level than you. See, another stun, and then you take all those hits while you're running. One of the things you need to keep in mind, though, that I found as a puller for as long as I've been doing it is the more turns you make, the more chance they have to catch up with you. If you can do the straightest path possible to the creatures. Is there a tree? That must be somebody who turned into one. Yeah. If you can do the straightest path possible, and you have a speed that's close to or equivalent to their run speed, then they won't catch up to you when you run back. They won't hit you, they'll be right on your tail, but they won't be hitting you the whole way back, which is what you really want, because if you're getting hit, when you show up to the group, you're going to be at low life, like I mentioned earlier, and you're going to put your cleric in a bad position. But But every time you do like this, where you turn while you're running, you know, every time you do something like that, where I'm doing it, it has a chance of slowing you down, basically, because it's not really slowing you down, but I've noticed that the orcs will hit you far more often. Like every time I'm running from the enemy and I'm going straight, he's not hitting me, but I do a slight turn like this, you know, like that, and all of a sudden I get hit, and then I don't get hit for a while. And the next time I do this, I get hit again. So I don't think it's just my imagination, especially since I played a pooler with my Shadow Knight for a long, long time. I think I have enough experience behind myself, or, you know, behind the pools that I've done to let you guys know that little tidbit that seems to hold up to be true. But if you can do the straightest path possible, it's always best. Now, sometimes that's not an option. Sometimes you will be in a dungeon, and dungeons usually are not open. They're usually not straight. And you got to go around a lot of corners and things of that sort. Now, thankfully, at those levels, you usually will have some kind of ranged attack, a ranged bow, a ranged spell, something you can cast on them. And for me, with my Shadow Knight, I always cast Dooming Darkness as my pull, because it's like a snare for druids. Get the snare. What it does is it slows their movement speed down. So if they were walking, or if they were going to run, they're going to walk. If they were walking before, they're basically going to crawl at a snail's pace. And if they were going to move at a snail's pace, then they're not moving at all. And most creatures will run, so you cast that on them, now they're walking. Well, that helps out for that one creature, but does it help out for the other 2 or 3 that are following them? And the answer would be no, it doesn't. But it is a ranged spell that I can use, and it is something that I can cast on the enemy. It hits them, and the moment it's done being cast, I'm running in the other direction. Like I won't sit there and look to make sure that it was cast. I can see that down here in the spell. So I'm facing the enemy, I cast my spell, and as it's casting, I turn to face the way I'm going to run. And the moment it's done, the moment I see that the spell has been cast down here in the text, I'm off. I'm sprinting down the hallway in the direction I need to go. And that gives me a good 2-3 second head start on the creatures. So as long as I can keep an even pace with them, I'm always a 2 or 3 second distance from them when I get back to the room. That gives me time to run into the room that sometimes has a door, and I have to wait for the door to open. I've got to click it and run through the door. And thankfully, they open pretty quickly, and the moment you click it, you usually can run through the door itself. You'll see yourself pass through a solid object, but it's no longer solid because you've opened it. But you'll get into the room, and then I would position myself. It would give me that 2 second head start to position myself, which is nice, because at this level, you don't really have that. At this level, I don't have any spells, so unless I used a bow of some sort, really the only way for me to do it is to run up there and hit them. And of course, they get the first few hits while I'm running back. So, you know, there's better ways to pull at later levels. Plus, if you're a class that has the ability to fatigue death, it's going to be a lifesaver for you. It's such an awesome ability to have, especially as the puller, which is why Shadow Knights and Monks make such great guys as that role. They make decent tanks. I mean, Shadow Knights, I won't lie, they are not the greatest tanks in the world. They're pretty good, and they can hold their own. Monks are decent at tanking. They're more on the DPS side than tanking, but they can do it in a pinch if you have, you know, a good group overall. If you have a good healer, which would probably be the majority of what you need, because without probably a higher level healer than the tank itself, you wouldn't be able to keep up with the health that he's going to be losing. But that's not necessarily always true, because if he just had an overwhelming number of DPS, then he's not going to take any hits because you're just going to kill it so quickly. So again, you know, if you can't... I actually was in a group one time with my Shadow Knight. We didn't have a healer at all. All we had was just an enormous amount of DPS. We had like, I think it was 2 wizards, and a couple of necromancers, and I think it was a rogue or something like that. And it was just amazing, because the moment I pulled it into the room, it was dead. It literally died before I could turn around. It It was amazing, the backstab and the 2 like ice comets and whatever the Necros were doing to it. I don't know what they were casting, but they were just killing that sucker. And so literally what I would have to do is, instead of using my Dooming Darkness to pull the creature, I had to use my Siphon Life to do it, just to get a little bit of health, because I couldn't do it inside the room. I couldn't wait till the fight started and then use that and get a little bit of health back from the pool that I, the health that I lost during the pool, because there just wasn't any time. It literally died the moment I entered the room. The only time it lasts long enough for me to use it is when I pulled more than one, and so I would actually take time to do that. But it's an option. You don't always have to have a healer. I've mentioned that many times in the past, that the healer is the base of every group. The healer and the tank, you actually always have to have one. But it's not, there's nothing in life that is always, there's no always that happens. Even gravity, scientists say that there's places in the universe that gravity is non-existent, or it's slowed down or affected in some way. So there is never an always. There's just, a lot of the time. And for the most part, you're going to want a healer and a tank in your group. But you don't always have to have it. You can make do with what you got and find a spot that really allows you to flourish. Just you got to know the zone well, and you got to either be a strong leader or have a strong leader in your group, somebody who's willing to take charge and say, hey, this is what we're going to go do. This is where we're going to do it. If anybody doesn't like that, then, give me an option. It's not like you're being a dictator and saying this is absolutely how it's going to be done. But you need somebody to take the reins, because in this game, I'm not quite sure why, and I've touched on it before in the past, a lot of people don't like to be the leader. A lot of people don't like to be the one to say, let's try this, or this is where we're going, or hey, follow me. And so a lot of the time, as my Shadow Knight, found that it was easier to be the leader because, one, you know the path really, really well. Two, you know how to get there without picking up a lot of ads, if that's what your options are. And you know how to get to, or keep a room. You know how to keep it broken. You know how to do the necessary bits. If a wizard who never leaves a room, or a cleric who never leaves a room, wants to do a group, that's great. That's fantastic. But he has to know how to get to that room. And then, if you're doing it without a pooler or without a tank, you're going to do it with like pets from a mage or a necro or something like that. They're not going to be familiar with how to break that room, and breaking a room is incredibly difficult in some zones. If you make a mistake, I remember there's some rooms that would have like 5, 6, 7 guys inside of it, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a really, really hard room to break. And it was, because, if you made just one mistake, you got all 5, 6, 7 guys at once, and that's pretty much a wipe. Unless you just had this amazing group with, an enchanter, and he was on the ball, and he got all those right off the bat before they just spread and started beating on random people all over the place, and, killed your cleric off, and whatever the case may be. But there was actually a trick to that room that I'm thinking of in my head. I can't remember what zone it was in, but you attack the one right in the middle, the one that's closest to every single mob in the room, and he comes by himself. Crazy. It didn't make any sense. That would be the one mob that I would think of never attacking. The one I would attack would be the one hiding in the corner that looks like he's the furthest away from everybody, and then I might be able to get him by himself coming out of the corner. But because of the pacing issues in this game, picking him would be your downfall. You pick him and he pays around the entire room for no reason. No reason he needs to do that, but he pays around the entire room. And because of that, he picks up all 7 people, and then he just walks over to you, and you die. Which is essentially what it would happen, unless you had fatigue death of some sort. So if you're going down there with people who are not familiar with those rooms and how to break them, with a group that's not necessarily ideal, you can run into some serious issues. But as a tank, if you have another character and you're playing him and you know those rooms, you can still do it. You can do it with a cleric pooling. I've never really done that myself, but a handful of times where I use my my hammer and raids to do a pull that I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing, but I'm told this is the way you do it, and this is assist this guy, send your pet off, and everything will be fine. And I trust in the people I'm with and be like, okay, fine, I'll go ahead and do it. Because I never really was the puller in a raid with my Shadow Knight. My Shadow Knight never got invited to those places. It was always my Cleric. My Cleric had a good guild, and they only allowed so many spots in. It was one of those high-end guilds that only allowed so many people to even be in the guild at one time, and they only ever allowed like 2 people a month to join. And they had to do all this stuff to prove that they were worthy and stuff. Thankfully, I got in early before I had to do that. I think they let a lot of that regulation slide from me because I was a cleric, and they really, really desperately needed clerics at the time. So I kind of got to skip all that nonsense of proving your allegiance and your dedication to the guild and all this other stuff. So, but they wouldn't let my Shadow Knight in. They never came out right and said no, he can't join. They'd be like, well, he has to meet these requirements. My Shadow Knight wasn't even close to meeting those requirements. They were high-end raid gear stuff, and it was impossible for you to get those requirements met unless you raided. And how do you raid if you can't get invited to a guild who goes raiding? So it's one of those cash, 22s, but it's just he never really got to go. So I never really got to experience what raiding was like with a tank, unfortunately. So when it came to those kind of pools, I just had to... Okay, I guess one of them is mine. But yeah, I love this game, guys. I think this is, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. I forgot to set my clocks. I don't know how long this video's been. I don't want to make it too terribly long. I like to keep a good mix for Everquest videos that I'm doing for old school. I do a couple of long ones every week, about an hour long, sometimes longer. And then I do some shorter ones for those of you who maybe, at a doctor's office or, sitting in a waiting room somewhere, wherever it may be. You got 20 minutes to kill. I try to do some under 20 minutes, some even less than that, about 15 minutes for those of you who may not have a whole lot of time. You may be sitting, waiting for your ride after school or something along those lines, and you want to watch a quick video. So I try to do a good mix of that, and I think I've done some really long ones this week, so I'm going to try to do a couple shorter ones as well. But I want to take a minute and thank you guys for watching, and ask you guys, if you like these videos, to take just a few seconds and hit the like or subscribe button if you want to watch some more in the future, because it definitely helps my channel grow. I've noticed that there are some companies out there that won't even allow you to review or let's play their games unless you have a certain number of subscribers or views per month and things of that sort. So every time you guys hit those buttons, it definitely helps grow my channel, allows me to review and play future games that you guys may enjoy watching. But even if you guys don't, I want to thank you guys for watching, because I appreciate that. It means a lot to me that you guys are finding these videos enjoyable. That's the main reason I play these games and make these videos and take the time out to do it, is just to connect with you guys and make sure that you guys are having fun. I just want you guys to have a good time and not feel pressured into doing anything. So I kind of hate asking for the likes and subscribes, but it's something I have to do to grow my channel. But we're going to go ahead and end it here. And again, guys, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next episode.